A new investigation claims that Minnesota's welfare system may have been exploited on a massive scale, with stolen taxpayer money funneled through Somali networks, with some of that taxpayer money ending up with the terror group al-Shabaab. The investigation exposes a national security vulnerability hiding inside America's safety net programs. I'll have those details. We're starting off with a fascinating piece of investigative reporting and a warning about how gaps in America's own social welfare programs may be opening the door to something, well, more nefarious than simple fraud. City Journal has published a detailed expose digging into what it calls a vast welfare fraud network operating out of Minnesota, one that allegedly siphoned off tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer money. And in some cases, portions of that cash may have been routed overseas to Somalia, where investigators believe some of it ultimately reached the terrorist group al-Shabaab. Now, we should be clear right up front. These allegations are still being investigated, and not every detail has been confirmed publicly by law enforcement. But the outlines of the story and the scale of the fraud inside Minnesota's social services programs are now well documented, and the possibility that even a fraction of U.S. taxpayer money could have ended up in the hands of a terrorist organization makes this more than a local scandal. It makes it a national security issue. At the center of the controversy is Minnesota's Medicaid-funded Housing Stabilization Services Program. Now, that's a safety net initiative designed to help seniors, disabled Minnesotans, and others at risk of homelessness. When the program was launched, state officials projected it might pay out around $2.6 million a year. Instead, investigators say those payouts exploded into the tens of millions and then kept climbing. According to the reporting, dozens of pop-up service companies, many registered by individuals inside the state's large Somali American community, began billing Medicaid for, quote, housing support services that in many cases appear to have been minimal or entirely fictitious. And it didn't stop with housing support. The reporters traced similar patterns across several social service programs, autism therapy programs, mental health rehabilitation, even food nutrition programs. In September of this year, the Justice Department unsealed multiple indictments tied to the Housing Stabilization Services fraud. But according to the City Journal investigation, those indictments may only scratch the surface. Their sources, including a former Federal Counterterrorism Task Force detective, say that as much as $20 million in welfare-derived funds moved through Hawala networks in a single year. Now, if you're not familiar with Hawalas, they're informal money transfer systems, common in parts of Africa and the Middle East. In short, a customer hands over cash to someone in Minnesota, a phone call is made, and someone in Somalia pays out the equivalent amount. They operate largely on trust networks, clan-based, family-based, and function outside of traditional banks. That means no SWIFT codes, no bank records, no formal oversight. Sometimes they're used for legitimate remittances, but they're also notoriously difficult to investigate, and that's part of the concern here. According to the reporting, as investigators traced these money flows back to Minnesota, they kept finding the same pattern. Individuals receiving state or federal benefits who were also sending significant sums overseas. And once that money arrived in Somalia, some of those funds may have been taxed or skimmed by al-Shabaab, which controls large parts of the local economy and often extorts fees from money transfer shops and merchants. Now, we don't have a public indictment accusing anyone in Minnesota of intentionally funding terrorism, but experts quoted in the article say the effect can be the same. If the money is moving through systems controlled by al-Shabaab, the group takes a cut. And if the source of that money is U.S. welfare programs, well, the taxpayer ends up subsidizing a foreign terror organization. Beyond the terrorism angle, the investigation raises questions about oversight inside Minnesota's social services infrastructure. The report suggests that state officials ignored warnings, downplayed red flags, and in some cases avoided scrutiny of certain fraud patterns out of fear of appearing discriminatory. And that, honestly, might be the most concerning part of all. Not just the fraud itself, but the lack of political or bureaucratic willingness to acknowledge it. This story is developing, and we're following it closely. There are still major unanswered questions, of course, about how far the fraud networks extend how much money actually flowed overseas, and whether other states may have similar vulnerabilities. As an aside, this weekend on the PDB Situation Report, we'll be speaking with Ryan Thorpe, one of the authors of this City Journal expose. He'll walk us through what he uncovered, what investigators told him, and where this story goes next. You'll want to tune in for that. All right, coming up next, another blow to Russia's shadow fleet. Ukraine says a tanker off Turkey was damaged overnight, part of Kyiv's effort to degrade Moscow's under-the-radar oil trade. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here with a tip on how to feed your family right this holiday season. Look, this time of year, everything gets busier, of course. Schedules get busier, travel, shipping, and the grocery stores. If you want to take one shopping burden off your plate, well, Tri-Tails Beef is the place to go, and they've got a straightforward solution. Look, you've heard me talk about Tri-Tails. It's a fifth-generation Texas ranching family delivering the most delicious beef you've ever had from their property to your door. Now, this holiday season, the Tri-Tails I'll Be Home for Christmas box, well, it's all about steaks. It's got the cuts you actually want when the house starts to fill up. You know what I'm talking about, ribeyes and strips and fillets. Premium Angus raised on a Texas ranch that still does things the right way. And right now, it's 15% off, but you have to hurry. The deadline to ship before Christmas is December 14th. If you want the holidays less stressful and more delicious, it's simple. Just turn to Tri-Tails Beef. And if you're thinking about gifts, well, Tri-Tails also offers all sorts of gift packages that you can send to family or friends. Practical and definitely sure to be enjoyed. Go to TriTailsBeef.com. Once again, that's TriTailsBeef.com. Hey, Mike Baker here. Well, here we go. The holidays will be here before you know it. And for many families, of course, that means excitement. But for many, it also means a little stress. Between gifts and travel and higher prices, it is easy to feel overwhelmed, right? Especially if you're already relying on credit cards to cover the basics. If that debt is piling up for you, well, let me tell you, you're not alone. So maybe, if you're a homeowner, you might have already considered reaching out to our friends over at American Financing, but you hesitated because you don't want to give up your low mortgage rate. Well, that's why American Financing created what they call the Smart Equity Loan. It's simple, it's smart, and it's a way to get your finances back on track without giving up your low mortgage rate. Unlike a HELOC, which of course can fluctuate with the market, the Smart Equity Loan offers a fixed rate, so you'll have one predictable monthly payment. It lets you use your home's equity, pay off high-interest debt, free up your cash flow, and still keep your existing mortgage intact. There are no upfront fees, that's important, so if you want to find out if you qualify, it's easy. Just call 866-885-1881. Again, that's 866-885-1881. Or just visit AmericanFinancing.net/PDB. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. Ukraine didn't make us wait long for an answer to the question that we posed on today's PDB. Would Kyiv strike more of Russia's illicit crude tankers? Well, a third vessel was attacked in the Black Sea, this time a ship allegedly carrying sunflower oil, but operating in the same waters as Moscow's shadow fleet. When we left off, Ukraine had used naval drones to strike two Russian-linked tankers, the Kyiv and the Virat, near Turkey's northern coast. Both were described by Western sanctions databases as part of Russia's shadow fleet. It's the murky, sanctions-busting workhorses that move crude outside the Western financial and insurance system. For Ukraine, the goal was clear: hit the oil logistics that keep the Kremlin's war machine funded. Now, we're in the, quote, what happens next phase, and it's unfolding almost exactly along the lines that we had talked about. Today, Turkey's Maritime Authority said another Russian-flagged tanker, the Mid-Volga II, was attacked by a drone about 80 miles off the Turkish coast while sailing from Russia toward Georgia. Ankara said the 13 crew members were unharmed and it did not request assistance. That makes the Mid-Volga II the third Russian tanker targeted in a week's time, after Ukraine's naval drones hit the Kyiv and Virat inside Turkey's exclusive economic zone over the weekend. But the sunflower oil manifest is, in part, what's raising eyebrows. The Turkish authorities are emphasizing it, but analysts who track sanctions evasion say the designation reads like a familiar cover story in an ecosystem built on misdeclared cargoes and falsified paperwork and opaque ownership structures. Russia's shadow fleet, the same gray market network that Keros and Virat were part of, runs on tankers that routinely switch flags, operate under shell companies, turn off their transponders, and obscure their cargo origins through ship-to-ship transfers. In that context, a tanker moving similar routes in the same operational patterns at the exact moment Ukraine's targeting sanction-busting crude carriers is naturally being viewed as part of the same illicit logistics chain. So on paper, yeah, it's sunflower oil. In practice, it looks a lot like a shadow fleet vessel. What's changed since the first two strikes is not just the number of tankers, but who's speaking up. Turkish President Erdogan condemned the attacks on the Keros and the Virat as a, quote, worrying escalation, arguing they threaten navigational safety and the environment in Turkey's exclusive economic zone. The Turkish president is sending two messages at once, signaling to Ukraine that Ankara does not want its waters turned into a battlefield, and to Russia and everyone else that Turkey intends to maintain control over the Black Sea corridor that feeds the Bosporus and Dardanelles. This morning, I said the key thing to watch was whether Ukraine would repeat the tactic, whether this was a one-time message or the opening act of a new front. 3 tankers in roughly a week, well, that's beginning to look less like a signal and more like a pattern. You have to remember what's at stake. According to data cited by a Helsinki-based think tank, more than 100 vessels tied to Russia's shadow fleet sailed under false flags in the first 9 months of this year, carrying more than 12 million tons of crude, worth over $5 billion. This is an industrial-scale workaround that keeps billions flowing into Moscow's war chest despite Western caps and embargoes. If Ukraine can steadily impose real risk on that network, it can squeeze the revenue stream that has proved resilient under sanctions. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Tuesday, the 2nd of December. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And to listen to the show ad-free, well, that's simple. You can do that. It's very easy. Just become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here, with a great holiday opportunity from our friends over at Birch Gold Group. Now, do you remember that great Burl Ives Christmas tune, Silver and Gold? I'm sure you do if you saw the old-time Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Anyway, that's what we're talking about here. Because for every $5,000 that you purchase between now and December 22nd, Birch Gold will send you an ounce of silver. And if you aren't aware, well, silver happens to be up over 60% this year. So here's the thing. When you're talking about protecting your hard-earned assets, it's important to diversify and have a hedge against uncertain times and instability. So that's why I encourage you to consider buying gold from the Birch Gold Group. Let Birch Gold help you convert an existing IRA or a 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And for every $5,000 you buy, you'll get an ounce of silver for your stocking, or, well, for your kid's stocking. It's a great way to teach them about investing and building a smart portfolio. Just text PDB to 989-898 to claim your eligibility for this offer. Again, text PDB to 989-898 today, because Birch Gold's free silver with qualifying purchase promotion, well, that ends on December 22nd. Again, text PDB to 989-898.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.